Story 1. It does not make me feel any different. My wife chose to stay home with our autistic daughter. Actually, truth be told, I am glad that she did. My wife is the single most important part of making sure our daughter gets the education and support she needs to become successful, which she really has. In the past year, she has developed socially much better than anyone had anticipated. That's primarily because of my wife. Story 2. I've supported my wife for 20 years, and I'm not crazy about it. It does subtly make me the more powerful member of the couple, and it tends to be me that makes most of the key decisions. We discuss things, but I just seem to have more influence. I don't especially want that. I'd really prefer it wasn't this way, and there are a lot of downsides to it. I've been suffering with a health issue for a while now. It's not that bad, but I really worry about how my wife would manage if I became debilitated. I've also had to make a lot of decisions in life which have stressed me out. I've worked longer hours, further from home because I have to support all of us. I've always had this sense that the welfare of the whole family rests on me alone, and that isn't a nice feeling. That said, there are upsides. I love my wife very much, and she's a sweet woman. She's always been there for our kids, and I feel like they've got a lot from the situation. It's also nice that she always makes me food when I get home after a hard day. I do cook, but at the weekend. We don't have that thing where both of you are stressed like some couples have, because my wife lives a fairly relaxed life and she uses that to make our home a really peaceful and happy place. Anyway, the long and short of it is that there are pluses and minuses. Story 3. I have been financially supporting my fiancée for about a year and a half while she was finishing up school. It's not fun, especially when she is at home doing homework all day and I'm at work all day. Then, when I get home, I want to lie down and relax, and she wants to go out and do something just to get out of the house. Luckily, she graduated last month, got a job offer yesterday, and will be making more than me, so that will be a nice vacation for my responsibility. Story 4. I support my wife financially. I feel indifferent about it. Although I earn enough to support us both and our son, it would be nice if we could save some money. I don't think it's changed the dynamic of our relationship. She's an amazing mother, and she studies at college. Her not working was actually my choice. I advised her to go back to college as she was unfulfilled in her career. Now she's pursuing something she loves, and she's amazingly talented at it. Someday soon, I'm sure she will be earning money. The only thing about it is that occasionally the financial pressure gets on top of me, and I feel stressed out about money. Not that we don't have enough. I just wish I could work a bit less sometimes. Story 5. My wife excels at public relations and has been doing nonprofit public relations for years. She told me point blank when we first got together that she'd never make any real money, but if she was helping people, that's what was important. It's one of the reasons I love her. She makes way less than she does in the private sector, but there are so many people who have come up to me and thanked me for everything she does to keep the charities afloat. I would never begrudge being the breadwinner. She's amazing, and it just means I'm tangentially helping too by giving her the freedom to make less but help more. Story 6. My wife has been supporting me for almost 16 years. I have been a stay-at-home dad for all of that. She makes excellent money and it hasn't been a problem. I do feel bad about it, though. But our 3 kids are being raised by their parents, so it's cool. Story 7. When we first started dating, my wife made a lot more money than me as I was finishing school while she was bartending. The plan was for her to support us the first couple of years, and then we would switch and I would support her as she went to school. That transition was a little bumpy as she felt like she was losing control when I slowly started taking over more and more of the finances. Today, she's perfectly happy with it, and I've learned that she can start to feel overwhelmed when talking about long-term goals, retirement accounts, and our monthly expenditures, so I try to keep it very high level but still be transparent. She's a lot less stressed with not having to worry about all those things, even though she has complete access to see and review the information. Personally, I love having the ability to provide for my family. It gives me a sense of purpose and accomplishment that my wife can stay home, she never would, if she wanted and bond with our daughter. It allows her to have a career where she doesn't make a lot of money, but she gets to help people. My wife does jokingly say that she's a broke girl and couldn't live on her own if we ever divorced. I've always supported her going back to school for her ultimate goal of nursing, as it would offer better pay, hours, and still give her that personal interaction with people, but she wants to hold off a little as there are other things in our lives that are causing her stress. I'll support any decision and route she wants to take, whether it be her current work, school, or staying home. Overall, the dynamic of our relationship has changed as I have proven myself to be trustworthy and responsible in her eyes. So a lot of the long-term goals, such as retirement and housing, fall on my shoulders. I still discuss all of these topics with her, but she tends to defer to my suggestions and choices. My wife knows I don't make decisions without researching options and trying to choose the best one that keeps the most doors open for the future. Story 8 worked great for us, but we're both a bit old-fashioned and traditional. In the United States, we don't have much maternity time, and most families need 2 incomes now, so I was proud to be able to support my family while my wife raised our kids. When the youngest was 10, she went back to work, but it was essentially the same deal. I was proud to be able to support my family so she could get a job where her passion was, despite it paying very little. We also tended to split our responsibilities traditionally. I'll cook when appropriate, but her superior organizational skills make her the better cook, better at running the house, and better at dealing with kids' commitments. We pooled our money, and again, she had the organization to deal more easily with household and kids' stuff. Financially, I took care of everything that could be done electronically while she takes care of things requiring writing checks. I deal with repairmen, anything outside, anything car-related, any maintenance, anything electronic, and anything gross, while she does more keeping the house running. We each have our areas where we're the authority, and we're fine with that, except laundry. No one likes that. Story 9. I have a bit of experience with both sides of this. When my fiancée and I met in 2014, after 2 weeks of dating, she had some huge personal issues that put her into a bit of a depressive spiral. As a gesture of support and a vote of confidence in the relationship, I invited her to move in after only dating for less than a month. I paid her rent and covered her living costs while she dealt with her depression and complications from the incident. I always held out hope that she would improve, get a steady job, and be able to make our relationship more equitable, but it didn't happen. After a full year of it, I had had enough and called it off despite being best friends and really enjoying our relationship. It felt like the security I was providing her was enabling her passivity towards tackling her mental health, and frankly, I didn't want to be strapped to that anymore. When we split, I told her, "If you get your act together, I would love to try this again, but I'm not going to be waiting on it." A full year later, we checked in with each other, and by God, it seemed like she had actually gotten her life together. She had a stable job, was in therapy, had found a medication that worked, and had erased her debt. I was blown away. We've been back together for almost 3 years now, are engaged. And I am so grateful that I found a woman who can support herself and be so additive to the relationship, that we are both able to support each other's dreams and live on a single income if need be, which could be either of ours, is an amazing freedom. It has also done wonders for her outlook on life and self-confidence. Summary: the perks of having a partner who can self-support are manifold. Story 10. My husband is the sole provider in our house. Culturally, he was raised to believe that the man should provide financially, so he likes the arrangement. More extreme than most couples, and this will be slightly modified when we have kids, I do all the cooking, cleaning, yard work, and run the budget. I take care of our dogs and most everything else except yearly taxes and insurance. I make his doctor appointments and pick up things he needs. Our dynamic is that he works hard, and when he comes home, he shouldn't have to worry about anything else at home. We communicate a lot and regularly make joint decisions. I don't feel like we have an unbalanced power dynamic. I worked full-time for a few years, and it was much more stressful for both of us. It was a low salary, and to us, the extra money wasn't worth the stress and frustration of trying to juggle everything else. Story 11. I have 2 daughters, and I've always made a point of advising them to never rely on their future partner, because as soon as they do, they give up a big chunk of their power in the relationship. They are a bit young to hear the reasons why right now, but I'll get to it when they're older, especially their power to just walk out the door and move on with their life without having to substantially lower their standard of living as a result if the guy turns out to be difficult. I had a go at my wife's friend the other day because my daughter was explaining how she's going to buy a big mansion and travel the world when she grows up. My wife's friend's response was, "You'll have to find a rich husband." Then she got all upset when I responded, "No, she'll have to study hard and get really smart so she can figure out how to make her own money for it. Otherwise, it won't be her mansion, it will be her husband's." This friend should know better too. Her ex-husband walked all over her with the whole, "If you leave with nothing" bit in the years before their divorce. Story 12. When my wife and I first got married, she was making less than minimum wage in an AmeriCorps position, so I was making double what she did despite not making a lot. She quit a few months later to focus on looking for a real job and got a job making more than twice what I do. And honestly, the dynamic hasn't changed much. We've always managed finances and budgeting together. I think she does feel more comfortable suggesting large purchases than when she wasn't making much, but that's probably more because we make 2.5 times more than we did before. Story 13. I've been with my fiancé for over 3 years now. We've both had 3 jobs since we started dating, and in all 3 situations, I've made more money. I even asked her to move in with me primarily because I wanted to take our relationship further, but also because I was living in a bigger city and had reliable internet access, while her only other option back then was living out in the country with her mom who doesn't have Wi-Fi. I pay most of the bills and most of the rent mainly because keeping track of bills stresses her out. Getting groceries is kind of on a, "Hey, I'm near the store, do we need anything?" basis, while my fiancée is responsible for her own bills, and I feel like she does pay for most of our leisure activities. It makes me feel good to provide for the people I care about, especially my fiancé, but saying so lands me in hot water sometimes. I get accused of wanting to provide because I'm enforcing some age-old gender stereotype. My parents don't really understand. They think all bills should be split 50-50 regardless of income level. I don't mind the current setup. My fiancé has some anxiety and depression issues, and the more burdens I can take off her shoulders, the better. She's a public school teacher, and seeing her mood during the summer when she has a lighter workload is night and day compared to how stressed and sad she gets during the school year. I'd be happy with making the money while she makes the decisions about where we live and stuff. If her needs are met and she's happy, I'm happy. However, I have found that saying, "I'll make the money, you make the decisions" does not go over well. Maybe one day I can make enough money so that she only has to work part-time or not at all. Story 14. I am a full-time senior engineer, and my wife is a part-time preschool teacher. I currently make about 8 times what she does, but when our kids were little, she was a stay-at-home mom. It has been a partnership. I bring in money, and she manages the household. I do not consider it my money. It is just my contribution. Hers is equally valuable. Story 15. I recently came out of a 7-year relationship where 6 of those years I supported her fully financially. When we met, she was working, so we purchased a house and moved in together. She had some health issues, and shortly after we purchased the house, she lost her job. At that point, we decided that because I made good money, she was going to stay home, take care of the house, and focus on her health. The problem is she never focused on her health, never got better, and never really did much in the way of taking care of the house. It became very hard. We would fight about money constantly because even though she didn't work, she still wanted a pretty expensive lifestyle. We would fight about her not doing anything around the house, and we would fight about her not taking care of herself. It led to a lot of resentment on both of our parts. It sounds silly now, but I stayed with her for as long as I did because we truly loved each other. And I like to think that in a different life we would have been perfect together. If you're asking this question because you think that might be happening to you, my only piece of advice would be to very carefully manage each other's expectations. If there is something you want your spouse to do in return for you supporting them, then make sure they know that. And if they don't live up to that expectation, then your relationship will not last. Remember that people will treat you the way that you teach them they can treat you. Unfortunately for me, I taught my ex very early on that she could get away with most things and that I would always take care of our problems. Don't be me.